My stepdaughter looked me straight in the eye and said, "The greatest gift for my wedding, your absence." My wife stayed silent. So before the wedding, I gave them exactly what they asked for. What I left in that empty house left them speechless. Everything changed. Hello everyone, and welcome. If this story resonates with you, please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. A quick note: this narrative contains fictionalized elements for storytelling and educational purposes. Any similarities to real people or places are coincidental, but the lessons shared here are meant to be meaningful. My stepdaughter looked me straight in the eye and said the greatest gift I could give her for her wedding was my absence. I was sitting at the head table in the Emerald Room, a private dining space where the chandeliers probably cost more than my first work truck. 40 guests. Rehearsal dinner on a Thursday night. The air smelled like expensive perfume and old money. My business checkbook lay open in front of me, pen in hand. 40 years of running a marina had trained me to keep records neat and clean. The invoice was from the florist. $14,200 for flowers that would wilt in 2 days. "Eugene, can you hurry up?" Evelyn said. She was 26, checking her lipstick in the back of a spoon. "The photographer's waiting and you're ruining the lighting." She hadn't called me dad since she was 12. Just Eugene. Like I delivered packages for a living. I signed the check. Firm, automatic. The same signature I'd used on dock leases and repair contracts for decades. But when I tore it from the book, something heavy dropped in my chest. "Here," I said. She took it without looking at me. No thank you. No smile. She passed it to the wedding planner like I was an ATM that finally worked. Finally, she muttered, "This has been so stressful. I need a mimosa." I watched her walk away and remembered meeting her at 10 years old, hiding behind her mother's legs in a pink t-shirt. Her biological father, Travis, had vanished 2 years earlier. Never sent a dime. I taught her how to tie boat knots, sat with her through fevers, paid $128,000 for college, for a degree she never used. None of that mattered here. In this room, I was just the man who wrote checks. Across the table, Sharon, my wife, laughed with the groom's mother. She wore the navy dress I'd bought last week. She caught my eye, offered a polite smile, then turned away. A hand landed on my shoulder. Chad Kingsley, my future son-in-law, 30 years old, Boston pedigree, ancestors on the Mayflower, a tux that fit like paint, cologne that probably cost more per ounce than diesel fuel. "Hey Eugene, we need to talk logistics for tomorrow." I turned. "Problem with the catering. No food's great." He sat backward on a chair, casual on purpose. "It's the seating chart. My parents and I think it would be better if you sat at table 18. I knew table 18. This wedding was in my backyard, 5 acres I'd saved 30 years to buy. Table 18 was by the kitchen doors, where you put distant relatives and co-workers you couldn't avoid inviting. "Chad," I said evenly, "I'm the father of the bride. Technically, stepfather." He hesitated, then continued. "The Kingsleys are traditional. We value bloodlines. There'll be a state senator here, partners from my dad's firm. The head table should be immediate biological family. Better symmetry for photos." Symmetry. After $96,000 spent, they wanted me near the dishwashers. "One more thing," he said. "Evelyn wants her biological father to walk her down the aisle." The room went underwater quiet. "Travis," I said. "Yeah, her real dad." Big moment. "She didn't want to hurt your feelings, but she thinks you'd be more comfortable in the background. You're practical. You run a marina. You get structure. You've been great with financial support, and we appreciate that. But Travis looks the part." I looked at my hands. Scarred. Thick. 40 years of engines, ropes, salt water. Then at Chad's, smooth, manicured, untouched by work. "Does Evelyn know you're asking me this?" I asked. He laughed softly. It was her idea. Across the room, Evelyn stood at the bar with Travis. His rented tux sagged at the shoulders. She looked at him with a glow I'd never seen directed at me. Pain shot into my shin. Sharon. She was staring at me, eyes wide. She'd heard everything. Her lips formed silent words. Say okay. Don't make a scene. Then she kicked me again, hard. That kick shattered the last excuse I'd been making for her. She wasn't caught in the middle. She was complicit. She knew about the table, about Travis. She wanted the Kingsley name and lifestyle, but she was embarrassed by the man who paid for it. You're right, Chad, I said quietly. He smiled in relief. Knew you'd understand. Solid guy. I closed my checkbook and capped my pen. Inside me, something didn't break. It unlatched. I stood, joints cracking. 70 years old. Where are you going? Sharon grabbed my wrist nails, digging in. Need air. Don't embarrass me, she hissed. I looked at her and finally saw calculation instead of love. I won't, I said. I walked out past the valet stand, past my Ford F-250 with Patterson's Marina on the door. I didn't get in. I needed to walk. 5 blocks before my hands stopped shaking. 5 blocks before I called Richard Stone, my attorney and friend of 40 years. He answered, Eugene, it's late. I need you tomorrow at 6, I said. I'm changing my estate, selling the house. Silence. The wedding's Saturday. I know. Talk to me. They want me absent, I said. So I will be. But I'm taking everything with me. I ended the call. Standing alone under the streetlight, the sadness was gone. What remained was clarity, cold, clean, final. They didn't want Eugene the man. Only Eugene the wallet. So I closed it. For good. I stepped out of the restaurant at 10 o'clock that night. Rain fell immediately, cold, relentless, like the truth was finally washing through my mind. I didn't get in my truck. Not yet. I needed to walk. I needed the rain to cool the fire burning in my chest before I did something stupid. Downtown was nearly empty. A few cars hissed past on wet pavement headlights, slicing through the drizzle. I kept my head down and walked. 1 block. 2. 3. The rain soaked through my jacket, plastered my shirt to my back, but I didn't care. Each step cleared my head. Just Eugene. That's what Chad had said. What Evelyn had confirmed with a smile sharper than any blade. I'd raised that girl. From the time she was 10, I'd been the one driving her to school, teaching her to fish off my boats, sitting through parent-teacher meetings when Sharon was busy. I paid for braces, her first car, her college tuition. I wrote checks without hesitation because that's what fathers do. Except I wasn't her father. Not in the way that mattered to her. The rain came harder. I shoved my hands deeper into my pockets and kept walking. My fingers touched something folded in my wallet. I knew what it was before I pulled it out. A Father's Day card, construction paper, crayon hearts, stick figures holding hands. You're my real dad. Love, Evie. 16 years I'd carried that card. 16 years I'd believed it. I stood under a streetlight and stared at it while rain blurred the faded crayon. My stomach twisted. She'd been 10. Just a kid. Maybe she'd meant it. Maybe Sharon told her to write it. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. I folded it carefully, slid it back into my wallet, and kept walking. By the time I reached the Harbor Hotel, I was soaked through shivering and angrier than I'd been in 40 years. The lobby was warm, too warm after the rain. The young woman at the desk smiled politely. Good evening, sir. Checking in. Yes. I handed her my credit card. My hands were shaking and it wasn't from the cold. She typed, paused. We have a suite available for $625 a night. Is that all right? I almost laughed. I just signed a $14,000 check for flowers Evelyn didn't even want me to see. $625 was nothing. That's fine. She handed me the key card. Are you in town for business or? My family asked me to leave, I said. For a wedding I'm paying for. Her fingers froze. She looked up, and for the first time that night I saw something I needed: sympathy. Not pity. Sympathy. "I'm sorry," she said softly. I nodded, took the key and headed for the elevator. The suite was enormous, too big for one man. King bed, sitting area, harbor view through rain-streaked glass. I stood there a long time, staring at the lights reflected on black water. Somewhere out there was my marina. 40 years of work. Bought it at 30. Grew it from 12 slips to 220. 3 workboats. A crane barge. 12 employees. I built a life with my hands and used it to build a family. Except I hadn't built a family. I'd built an ATM. I checked my phone. 1:47 a.m. I scrolled to Richard Stone and hit call. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Eugene, it's 2 in the morning." "I know." Silence. Then, what happened? I told him everything. The florist check. Chad pulling me aside. Table 18. Travis. Sharon's kick under the table. The look in her eyes that said she'd known all along. When I finished, Richard was quiet. "You still there?" I asked. "I'm here," he said slowly. "And I've known you 40 years. I've never heard you like this." "Like what?" "Done!" The word landed heavy. Done. That was it. I need to change everything I said. The will, power of attorney, every account Sharon can touch. Okay. And I'm selling the house. Another pause. "Tomorrow's Friday," he said. "The wedding's Saturday." "There won't be a wedding," I said. "Not at my house. Not on my dime." I heard him sit up. "What are you planning?" "I don't know yet. But I'm done paying. Not one more dollar, not one more insult." "Good," Richard said sharp now. "You want this clean, completely legal, but thorough." He let out a low laugh. "You want them to feel what it's like to lose everything while watching it happen." I looked out at the rain-smeared lights. "Yes, 6 a.m., he said. "My office. Bring bank statements, titles, contracts, everything." "I will." He hesitated. "Be careful. Money makes people dangerous." I almost smiled. "It's too late for careful. It's time for truth." "Then don't look back," he said. "You deserve better than being treated like a wallet with a pulse." "Thank you. See you at 6. He hung up. I stood in the dark suite, rain pounding the windows. Somewhere Sharon and Evelyn were probably relieved I'd disappeared, so the celebration could go on without just Eugene in the way. They thought I'd given up. They thought I'd keep paying quietly and fade out when told. They had no idea what was coming. I set my alarm for 5, lay on the empty bed, and closed my eyes. Tomorrow the truth would tear everything apart, and this time I'd be the one holding the match. I didn't go back to the hotel. Not right away. Something wasn't right. The way Sharon had looked at her tablet during dinner. The way she'd hidden the screen when I'd glanced over. The way all 3 of them had relaxed the moment I walked out the door. They weren't just disrespecting me. They were planning something, and I needed to know what. I parked my truck 2 blocks away from the house, killed the lights, and sat there in the dark. Rain drummed on the roof. My hands gripped the steering wheel. This was my house, my property. But I felt like a criminal about to break in. I got out, kept to the shadows, walked around the block, and came at the house from the waterside, where the yard sloped down to the private dock. The boathouse sat dark and quiet, its door unlocked just like it had been for 6 months. I'd been meaning to fix that latch. Now I was grateful I hadn't. I slipped inside. The boathouse smelled like motor oil and old rope. I moved carefully, letting my eyes adjust, and climbed the interior stairs to the mudroom entrance. Through the door, I could hear voices. Laughter. I froze. Not to the phantom, Chad's voice, loud and cocky. The guy who pays but doesn't get to stay. Laughter. Sharon's voice. God, he looked so pathetic tonight. More laughter. Then Evelyn, quieter. I did feel a little bad. Just a little. Pause. Then she laughed too. Harder than the others. I stood there in the dark, fists clenched, jaw locked. Every instinct told me to kick that door open and confront them. But I didn't, because I needed more than anger. I needed proof. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. Finally, footsteps on the stairs. Bedroom doors closing. The house went quiet. I gave it another 10 minutes, then eased the door open and stepped into the mudroom. The house was dark, except for a light in the kitchen. I moved like a ghost. 40 years of walking boat decks at night taught you how to move silent. Through the kitchen, down the hall, into my office. Sharon's tablet sat on my desk. The screen was still lit. She'd forgotten to lock it. I picked it up, hands shaking, and saw the notification on the screen. A group chat. The name at the top made my blood go cold. Phase 2. I opened it. The chat went back 3 months. Sharon had created it. The members were Sharon, Evelyn, and Chad. Sharon's first message. Here's the plan. Phase 1. Eugene pays for the wedding. We impress the Kingsleys. Phase 2, after the wedding, we file for incompetency, get him into Shady Acres, liquidate everything. 3.2 million split 3 ways. Over $1 million each. I felt sick. Chad, what if he fights it? Sharon. He won't. I've already talked to Dr. Raymond. I've been documenting confusion, and I've been putting something in his tea at night to make sure he seems off. Evelyn, Mom, that's kind of dark. Sharon. It's not dark, honey. It's practical. Your stepfather has been hoarding money for years. We deserve our share. Chad, timeline. Sharon, wedding June 15th. Competency hearing in July. He's in Shady Acres by August. We liquidate in September. Evelyn, what about the marina? Sharon, sell it. Vincent Grant's been interested for years. Chad and the house. Sharon, gone. All of it. Clean slate. I read it twice, then a third time. My wife, the woman I'd loved for 16 years, had been drugging me, planning to declare me incompetent, lock me in a nursing home, take everything I'd built, and my stepdaughter, the girl I'd raised, was in on it. I started taking screenshots, one after another, 47 in total, every message, every detail, every piece of evidence. I uploaded them all to the cloud, backed them up twice. Then I set the tablet back down exactly where I'd found it. As I stood there in the dark, a memory hit me. Year 3 of our marriage. Sharon had surprised me with a birthday dinner at the marina office. Candles, homemade lasagna, wine. You work so hard, she'd said. You deserve to be appreciated. I'd believed her. What happened? When did appreciation turn into resentment? When did love turn into greed? Or had it always been this way, and I'd just been too willing to see it? I thought about Evelyn at 16, demanding a car for prom. I need a car, Dad. I'd said, what kind do you want? I should have said, get a job. But I didn't. Because I thought love meant saying yes. I thought being a provider meant never saying no. I'd taught them this. I'd enabled every entitlement, every expectation, every demand. I'd built my own prison, one yes at a time. And now they were going to lock me in an actual one. Not anymore. I noticed Eleanor's coat draped over the chair by the filing cabinet. The housekeeper's jacket. Eleanor worked Thursdays. She'd been here today. Had she seen Sharon put something in my tea? I made a mental note. Eleanor Harris. Potential witness. I moved back through the house the same way I'd come. Silent. Invisible. Out through the boathouse, down to the dock, back around the block to my truck. I sat in the driver's seat, phone in my hand, 47 screenshots glowing in the dark. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. Rock steady. The same way they'd been 40 years ago when I'd bought my first workboat with a handshake and a plan. They had phase 1 and phase 2, but I had something they hadn't counted on. And it was going to start in 5 hours the moment the banks opened. At 6 o'clock Friday morning, I walked into Richard Stone's office carrying evidence of a conspiracy, a marriage I wanted to end immediately, and a resolve I'd never felt before in my life. Richard was already there. Coffee brewing, desk lamp on. He looked up when I came in, took one look at my face and said, "Show me." I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots. He didn't say a word while he read. Just scrolled and scrolled. His jaw tightened. His knuckles went white on the edge of the desk. When he finished, he set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. "Eugene." His voice was quiet, deadly quiet. "This is elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud. We can take them to criminal court. We can put Sharon in prison." I shook my head. "No." He frowned. "No, I don't want a trial that drags on for 2 years. I want them to feel what I felt last night." I leaned forward. "I want them to stand there and watch everything disappear." Richard studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right. Then we do this fast, clean, and legal. By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late to stop it." He pulled out a yellow legal pad and started writing. "First, revoke all powers of attorney, effective immediately. Sharon has no legal authority over anything. Done. Second, new will. Who do you want your estate to go to?" I didn't hesitate. "Ocean Conservation Foundation." Richard looked up surprised. "I've spent 40 years working on the water," I said. "It's the only thing that's never let me down. Let it go back to the water." He wrote it down. "Sharon and Evelyn get nothing. Nothing." "Good," he kept writing. "Third divorce filing. We file today, serve her tomorrow." "Perfect." Richard tapped his pen on the pad. "Timeline. If we want this done before the wedding, we move fast." He drew a rough schedule. 9:15 a.m., bank, withdraw joint funds, cancel credit cards. 11 a.m. Real estate investor, sell the house. 3 o'clock p.m., cancel wedding vendors. 4 o'clock p.m., moving truck, clear your belongings. Saturday morning, empty house, changed locks. I stared at the timeline. It was brutal, efficient, surgical. It was exactly what they'd planned to do to me. "The house," I said. "How fast can we sell it?" Richard pulled a business card from his desk drawer and slid it across. "Vincent Grant, real estate investor. Buys with cash. Closes in 72 hours. He'll lowball you probably 900,000 under market." I picked up the card. "Call him." "Eugene, that's a huge loss. I don't care about the money." My voice was flat, cold. "I care about them standing at the front door tomorrow morning and realizing the locks have been changed." "Call him. Tell him I'll take any offer if he closes today and takes possession tomorrow at noon." Richard looked at me for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and dialed. While he talked, I signed the documents he'd prepared. Revocation of power of attorney. New will. Divorce petition. My hand hesitated over the will. 40 years I'd worked for this. 40 years of 12-hour days of building something I thought would be a legacy. And now I was signing it all away to strangers. Was this too much? Was I being cruel? Then I remembered Phase 2. Shady Acres. $2,800 a month. A room with a twin bed and a window that didn't open. Sharon visiting once a month, if that. Evelyn not visiting at all. I signed. Richard hung up and looked satisfied. "Vincent can meet you at 11. He'll bring a contract and a wire transfer authorization." "Good." Richard leaned forward. "Now, the housekeeper. Eleanor Wright. If she was there yesterday, she might have seen Sharon putting something in your tea. We need her testimony. You think she'll talk? If she saw something wrong, most people don't like being complicit in a crime." He jotted down a note. "I'll reach out to her this afternoon. If she's willing to give a statement, it'll strengthen everything." I nodded. "Do it." Richard set down his pen and looked at me across the desk. His face was serious. "Eugene, once we start this, there's no going back." "You sure?" I thought about phase 2. I thought about the kick under the table, the look in Sharon's eyes. Shut up and pay. I thought about 40 years of building something with my hands, only to have it stolen by people who'd never worked a day on the water. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I said. Richard smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a man who'd been waiting 40 years to see his friend stand up for himself. He picked up the phone. "Vincent Richard Stone. I've got a client who wants to sell a waterfront estate today. 5 acres private dock marina rights. He'll take your best offer if you close by tonight and take possession tomorrow at noon." Pause. "Yeah, he's motivated." Another pause. Richard looked at me and raised an eyebrow. I nodded. "He'll take it. Draw up the contract. We'll see you at 11. He hung up. "It's done," he said. "House is sold. Vincent's bringing $2.3 million. Wire transfer hits your account by 5 p.m. I exhaled slowly. $2.3 million. 900,000 less than market value. I didn't care. Next stop, I asked. A bank. 9:15. Bring your ID and every credit card." Richard stood up and grabbed his jacket. "Eugene, by tomorrow morning, they're going to know exactly what it feels like to lose everything." I stood too. For the first time in 16 years, I felt like I was the one in control. "That's good too," I said. "That's exactly what I want them to feel." We walked out into the early morning light. The rain had stopped. The air smelled clean, and I had 4 hours to dismantle everything they thought they owned. Harbor Bank opened at 9 o'clock. I'd been standing outside since 8:55 watching the tellers prepare for another day. They had no idea they were about to witness the end of a 16-year marriage. At 9:15 sharp, I walked through the door. The lobby smelled like coffee and new carpet. A woman in a navy blazer looked up from the manager's desk and smiled. "Good morning. How can we help you today?" "I need to speak with someone about my accounts," I said. "It's urgent." She stood immediately. "Of course. I'm Susan Wright, branch manager. Please follow me." We went into a small office. Glass walls, a desk with a computer and a box of tissues. I wondered how many people had cried in this room. Today wasn't going to be one of those days. Susan sat down and typed something. "All right, Mr. Patterson. What can I do for you? I want to withdraw the full balance of my joint checking account. $187,500. Cashier's check. Made out to me only." Her fingers paused on the keyboard. She looked up. "That's a substantial amount. Is everything all right? Everything's clearer than it's been in 16 years. She studied my face for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Understood. I'll need to verify some information first. Can I see your ID?" I handed her my driver's license. She typed for another minute, then turned the screen toward me. "This is a joint account with Sharon Patterson. Legally, you have every right to withdraw the full balance, but I do need to inform you that this will leave the account at 0. "That's the idea." "All right." She typed some more. "I also see 4 credit cards linked to this account. American Express, Visa, Discover, and MasterCard. Would you like to make any changes to those? Cancel all of them immediately." Her eyebrows went up slightly. "Mr. Patterson, if there are authorized users on those cards, they'll be declined the moment I process this." I leaned forward. That's exactly the point. Understanding flickered across her face. She didn't ask any more questions. Just typed. I sat back and imagined it. Sharon at the salon getting her hair done for the wedding. $300 for highlights and a blowout. The stylist would swipe the card. The machine would beep. "Transaction declined. Please contact your bank." Sharon would laugh it off. "Oh, must be a mistake. Try this one." Same result, and then another, and another. By the 4th card, she wouldn't be laughing anymore. Done. Susan said quietly. All 4 cards are canceled. The full balance is being processed as a cashier's check. She looked at me. It'll take about 10 minutes to print and verify. Can I get you some water coffee? No, thank you. We sat in silence while the computer hummed. I could hear voices in the lobby, someone laughing. Life going on like normal, but nothing was normal anymore. The printer on Susan's desk whirred to life. A single sheet of paper slid out. She picked it up, reviewed it carefully, then slid it across the desk. It was $187,500, payable to Eugene Patterson only. I looked at the check. All those numbers, all those zeros. 40 years of 12-hour days. 40 years of building a marina from 12 slips to 220. 40 years of blisters and sunburn and hull grease under my fingernails. It was my money, every dollar of it, and I was taking it back. I folded the check and reached for my wallet. The Father's Day card was still there, tucked in the billfold where I'd kept it for 16 years. I pulled it out. The construction paper was soft, now faded from being carried around. The crayon hearts. The stick figures. You're my real dad. Love, Evie. I set it on the desk. Susan glanced at it, then at me. She didn't say anything. I stood up, slid the check into my wallet where the card had been. Thank you for your help, Ms. Wright. She stood too, extended her hand. I shook it. Then she said quietly, my ex-husband used to take me for granted too. Congratulations, Mr. Patterson. I stopped, looked at her. Thank you, she nodded. Good luck. I walked out of the office, through the lobby, and out into the bright Friday morning. The sun was out now. The rain from last night was gone. I got into my truck and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel check in my pocket. On the desk inside the Father's Day card still sat where I'd left it. Let it stay there. Some things you had to leave behind. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard Vincent confirmed. 11 o'clock at Dockside Diner. Bring property deed. I typed back on my way. I started the engine. By now, the first declined transaction had probably happened. Maybe Sharon's morning spa appointment. Maybe Evelyn's final dress fitting. It didn't matter which one came first. What mattered was that it was starting. The panic would begin small. A declined card. An awkward moment at a register. Oh, there must be a mistake. But by tonight, they'd realize it wasn't a mistake. By tonight, they'd know something was very, very wrong. I had 30 minutes before I met the man who was going to buy my house. 30 minutes before I sold the place where I'd thought I was building a family. Turns out I'd just been building an ATM with a nice view. Time to finish what I started. I put the truck in gear and drove toward the marina. One more piece to cut loose. Then the real work would begin. Vincent Grant was waiting for me at the Dockside Diner with a laptop, an electronic notary, and the look of a man who knew he was about to get a hell of a deal. I slid into the booth across from him. The diner smelled like coffee and bacon grease. Outside the window, boats rocked gently in their slips. My boats. My marina. For another 24 hours anyway. I'm Mr. Patterson. Vincent closed his laptop and extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, businesslike. Richard said you need to close fast. I can do 2.3 million. 80% wired today, the rest on possession tomorrow at noon. I nodded slowly. That's 900,000 under market value. It is. He didn't flinch, didn't apologize. That's the price of speed, and probably other factors. He meant desperation. He thought I was desperate. He wasn't wrong. A deal, I said. Vincent's eyebrows went up slightly. He'd expected me to negotiate. Most people would. But I didn't have time for negotiations. I had a wedding to dismantle and a family to evict. All right then. He opened his laptop and turned it toward me. Contracts ready. Standard terms. Property sold as is. No inspections, no contingencies. I take possession tomorrow at noon. Anything left in the house becomes mine to keep or dispose of. I'll have it cleared by then. Good. He pulled up another document. This is the wire transfer authorization. 1.84 million hits your account within the hour. The remaining 460 when I get the keys tomorrow. I read through the contract. It was clean, professional, everything Richard had promised. My hand hovered over the electronic signature pad. 40 years. That's how long I'd owned that house. Not the full 40. Sharon and I had only been married 16, but I'd bought the property 40 years ago, back when it was just raw land and a dream. I'd built the house myself. Every beam, every nail, 5 acres of waterfront. Private dock. 220 boat slips within walking distance. I'd proposed to my first wife there. I'd brought Sharon there as a bride. I'd taught Evelyn to fish off that dock when she was 10 years old. Was $900,000 worth it? Was revenge worth losing nearly $1 million? Then I thought about phase 2, Shady Acres, $2,800 a month. A twin bed and a window that didn't open. Sharon visiting once a month, if that. Evelyn never visiting at all. Drugged tea. Confusion. A competency hearing I'd never see coming. They were going to take everything and leave me to rot. I signed. The electronic notary clicked. Vincent uploaded the documents. Within seconds, a confirmation appeared on screen. Done, he said. Property transfers at noon tomorrow. Wire transfer is processing now. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out. Pending transaction. $1,840,000. That was it. 5 acres of waterfront. 16 years of memories. Sold in 45 minutes over coffee at a dockside diner. Vincent closed his laptop and looked at me. I'll bring a locksmith tomorrow. Change the locks right away. You should know. He paused. Whatever they did to you, it must have been bad. I looked out the window at the marina, at the boats swaying in their slips, at the life I'd built with my hands. They were going to erase me, I said quietly. I'm just returning the favor. Vincent nodded slowly. He didn't ask for details. Didn't need to. Fair enough. He stood and extended his hand again. I'll see you tomorrow at noon. And Mr. Patterson, you might want to bring security. I don't think they're going to leave quietly. I know. We shook hands. He left. I sat there for a moment, staring at my phone. $1.84 million. Pending. Real. It was done. The house was sold. The life I'd thought I was building gone. Sold to a stranger who'd flip it for profit within 6 months. But that was the thing about boats. Sometimes you had to scuttle your own ship. Sometimes the only way to survive mutiny was to sink the vessel and swim for shore. I stood up, dropped cash on the table for the coffee I hadn't touched, walked out into the bright Friday afternoon. The sun was shining. It was perfect weather for a wedding. Perfect weather for the end of a world, too. I checked my watch. Noon. I had 3 hours to cancel every vendor. By 3 p.m., the wedding would only exist on paper. By 4 p.m., the moving crew would empty the house. By Saturday morning, my family would wake up and realize they had nothing. No wedding, no house, no money, just each other. And from what I'd seen last night, that wasn't going to be enough. I got in my truck and pulled out my phone. 17 vendors. Caterer, florist, band. Photographer, videographer, cake tent, tables, chairs, linens, lighting, valet service, bar, service efficient, hair and makeup transportation venue coordinator. 17 phone calls, 17 cancellations, $52,000 in lost deposits, and every single one of them was going to hurt. I opened my notes app. Richard had prepared a script. Professional, firm, unemotional. This is Eugene Patterson. I need to cancel services for the Patterson-Kingsley wedding on Saturday, June 15th. Yes, I understand the cancellation policy. No refunds are necessary. Consider the deposits forfeited. This is effective immediately. I started the truck. Time to make some calls. And by the time I was done, there wouldn't be a wedding left to attend. I sat in my truck in the marina parking lot with my phone, a notebook, and a list of 17 vendors who were about to have a very bad afternoon. Outside, boats rocked gently in their slips. Gulls circled overhead. The water was calm. This was my place. The place where I'd built something real. The place where I still had control. Time to use it. I opened the notebook to a blank page and drew 3 columns: vendor deposit lost, final payment saved. Then I picked up the phone and dialed the first number. The caterer answered on the second ring. Gourmet Gatherings, this is Michael. Michael, this is Eugene Patterson. I need to cancel services for the Patterson-Kingsley wedding tomorrow. Silence. Then, Mr. Patterson, the event is in 24 hours. We've already prepared. I understand I'm forfeiting the deposit. $18,500. Don't bring the food. Don't come to the venue. Akjar, is there something we can fix? We can adjust the menu. The problem is being solved right now. Thank you for your time. I hung up. Wrote in the notebook, deposit lost $18,500, final payment saved $19,200. The florist took it worse. Her voice cracked when I told her. Mr. Patterson, I've been working on those arrangements for 3 months. The roses alone, keep the deposit. $14,200. But take the flowers to local nursing homes. They'll appreciate them more than just donate them. The irony wasn't lost on me. Shady Acres could probably use some roses, she agreed quietly. I hung up. Wrote it down, 14,200 lost, 8,800 saved. The band leader was angry. The Swing Kings, this is Dave. Dave Eugene Patterson. I need to cancel tomorrow night. What? His voice went sharp. We turned down 2 other gigs for this. Keep the deposit, $6,800. Enjoy your Saturday night off. This is completely unprofessional. I hung up, $6,800 gone. The calls blurred together after that. Photographer, videographer, cake, linens, lighting, valet service, bar service. Tables and chairs cost me $4,200 in deposits, but saved me $2,100 on the final bill. The tent company hurt the worst, $31,000, but that was the price of doing this fast. Transportation was $3,800. Hair and makeup, $2,400. The efficient, $1,200. Each one more shocked than the last. Each one trying to negotiate, to salvage, to understand. I didn't explain, didn't justify, just canceled and moved on. By call number 12, I'd developed a rhythm. Professional, firm, emotionless. This is Eugene Patterson. I need to cancel services for tomorrow. Yes, I understand the policy. Keep the deposit. This is effective immediately. Click, next number. My notebook filled up with numbers. I did the math at the bottom of the page. Total deposits lost $52,000. Total final payments saved $55,000. Net savings $3,000. But that wasn't the real savings. The real savings was my freedom, my dignity, my life. I'd saved Samantha Reed for last. She'd been Evelyn's go-to person for months. Every detail, every crisis, every decision had gone through Samantha. She answered on the first ring. Mr. Patterson, I was just about to call you. We need to finalize the… Samantha, I'm canceling the wedding. Silence. Long, terrible silence. What? The wedding is canceled. All vendors have been notified. There will be no event tomorrow. Mr. Patterson. Her voice was shaking now. Evelyn is going to be devastated. Please, we can postpone. We can move it to next month. We can… Samantha. I kept my voice level, cold. My stepdaughter planned to have me declared incompetent and locked in a nursing home. I think she'll survive a canceled wedding. I heard her breath catch. I don't understand. You don't need to. Just make sure no one shows up tomorrow. There's nothing to show up to. I hung up. Wrote in the notebook, deposit lost 5,400, wedding coordinator fee saved 8,600. Then I closed the notebook. 17 calls. 3 hours. A wedding that was supposed to happen in less than 24 hours was now just a stack of canceled contracts. I looked out at the marina, at the boats swaying in the afternoon sun. Each vendor cancellation was like cutting another anchor line. Pretty soon they'd be adrift with no idea where the harbor went. But the house still had their things in it. Designer clothes, jewelry, all the expensive stuff they valued more than me. I pulled up another number. Express Moving Services. It rang twice. Express Moving, this is Tony. Statita. Tony, I need a crew at my address in 1 hour. Full pack and load. I need everything that belongs to me out of the house by tonight. How big is the job? 5-acre estate, but I'm only taking my things. Work clothes, tools, personal items, everything else stays. Got it. We can do that. What's the destination? Storage facility. I'll text you the address. You understood. We'll be there at 4 p.m. sharp. Now one more thing, Tony. Yeah, bring the cheapest boxes you've got. There was a pause. Then Tony chuckled low and knowing. Rough day, huh? You have no idea. Well, we'll take care of you, Mr. Patterson. See you at 4. I hung up and leaned back in the truck seat. The wedding was dismantled. The house was sold. The money was secured. Now all that was left was to remove myself from the wreckage before they even knew the ship was sinking. I started the engine and pulled out of the marina parking lot. 4 p.m. 1 hour. Time to pack up 40 years and leave the rest behind. The 40-foot moving truck took up half the street. Neighbors looked out from their windows, probably wondering what was happening. Something was definitely happening. The crew chief, a guy named Mike with a clipboard and work gloves, walked up to me on the driveway. Mr. Patterson, we're here for the pack and load. This a standard move or... He trailed off looking at my face. Not standard, I said. Come inside. I'll explain. The 5-man crew followed me into the house. I led them to the garage first, where my tools hung on pegboards I'd installed 30 years ago. Pack my tools carefully, I said. Marine equipment, fishing gear, anything with my name on it. Photos of my parents, my work clothes. Those go into good boxes and onto the truck. Mike nodded, writing on his clipboard. Then I turned and pointed at the rest of the house. Everything else. Designer clothes, jewelry, furniture, electronics. Pack it in your cheapest boxes and put it on the curb. Mike's pen stopped. He looked up. On the curb, like trash. Exactly like trash. One of the crew members, a younger guy with a beard, spoke up. Sir, are you sure some of this stuff looks expensive? It is expensive, I said. And it's going on the curb. All of it. Mike studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're the boss. Let's get to work, boys. They started in the master bedroom. Sharon's walk-in closet was a museum of designer labels. Chanel jackets, Hermes bags, Louboutin heels. I'd paid for every single item, usually without even seeing the receipts. One of the movers held up a cream-colored coat. Sir, this is Chanel. It's probably worth... Curb, I said. He looked at Mike. Mike nodded. The coat went into a flimsy cardboard box. They moved to Evelyn's room next. The wedding dress hung in a garment bag by the window, $7,400 of silk and lace. I'd written that check 2 months ago without blinking. Folded it and put it in a dish box, I said. The whole crew stopped and stared at me. The wedding dress, Mike asked carefully. The wedding dress? He didn't ask again, just nodded to his crew. They took it down, folded it carefully, despite my instructions, and packed it with kitchen plates. I opened Evelyn's dresser drawer. Underneath a pile of expensive shoes, I found it. The Father's Day card. Construction paper faded now. Crayon hearts. Stick figures holding hands. A different one from the one in my wallet. Older, from when she was maybe 8. You're my real dad. Love, Evie. My hand shook as I held it. I remembered that day. Evelyn had made it at school, brought it home so proud. Sharon had smiled and said, "She insisted on making it for you." I stood there staring at the card, and for a moment I almost put it in the pile of things to keep. Then I thought about the woman who'd hidden this card under designer shoes while planning to lock me in a nursing home. That girl was gone. I set the card back in the drawer and walked away. Behind me I heard Mike quietly tell his crew, "Leave the dresser for the curb." Eleanor Harris showed up around 6:30. She wasn't scheduled to work, but she'd left her jacket in the utility closet. She walked in through the back door, saw the moving crew, saw the boxes, and stopped cold. "Mr. Patterson, what's happening?" "Eleanor." I turned to face her. "I need to ask you something important. Did you ever see Sharon put something in my evening tea?" The color drained from her face. She looked at the floor, then back at me. "Yes," she said quietly. "At least 4 times. She told me it was vitamins you forgot to take." "It wasn't vitamins." "I know," Eleanor whispered. "I suspected. But I needed this job." "I understand. Would you be willing to testify to what you saw if needed?" She looked me in the eye. "Yes. And Mr. Patterson, I'm glad you're leaving them." I nodded. "Thank you, Eleanor." She grabbed her jacket and left quickly, like she didn't want to be there when Sharon got home. The crew kept working. I had them take everything: light bulbs, curtains, ice cube trays, toilet paper. If I'd paid for it, it was either coming with me or going to the curb. By 7 o'clock, 53 boxes sat on the curb. Her mess bags poked out of wet cardboard. A sapphire necklace, $8,000, sat in a box getting damp. The wedding dress was visible through a torn flap. At 7:30 it started to rain, light at first, then heavier. I stood in the doorway and watched the boxes get soaked. By morning, everything in them would be ruined. Water-damaged, mildewed, worthless. Perfect. I walked back inside. The house echoed now. No furniture, no curtains, no warmth. Just walls and memories, and I was taking the good memories with me. Mike came up to me, clipboard in hand. "That's everything you wanted packed, Mr. Patterson. Truck's loaded. Where are we taking it?" I handed him an address. "Storage facility, climate controlled. I'll meet you there in an hour." He nodded, then hesitated. "Sir, I've been doing this 20 years. I've seen divorces, evictions, foreclosures. But I've never seen anything like this." "Good," I said. "Neither have they." Mike and his crew left. The truck rumbled down the street carrying 40 years of work clothes and tools and memories that actually mattered. I stood alone in the empty house. My footsteps echoed on the bare floors. Outside, the rain was coming down harder now. By morning, the pile of luxury items on the curb would be nothing but trash. The house would be empty. And when they walked in tomorrow expecting a celebration, they'd find exactly what they'd made me feel for 16 years. Nothing. At 8 o'clock. Friday night, Tony Bennett's crew showed up with floodlights and heavy equipment. They had a job that normally took 2 days to complete. I'd paid them to finish in 3 hours. Tony himself met me on the back lawn, looking at the massive white tent that had cost $31,000. Crystal chandeliers hung inside. White silk draping. A dance floor that could hold 200 people. It was supposed to be perfect. "Mr. Patterson," Tony said carefully. "You're sure about this, the wedding's tomorrow?" "I'm sure. Take it all down. Leave just the plywood dance floor." He nodded slowly. "All right. But I gotta tell you, this is gonna look rough. Just bare wood sitting in the grass. That's the idea." Tony looked at me for a long moment, then turned to his crew. "You heard the man. Let's strip it." They worked fast. The white silk came down first, billowing in the evening breeze like ship sails being lowered. Then the chandeliers carefully packed into padded crates. The lighting rigs, the sound system, the heating units. I stood in the drizzle and watched the structure collapse. Piece by piece, the fairy tale disappeared. They'd wanted a perfect backdrop for photos with Travis, the father-daughter dance that should have been mine. Now all they'd have was mud and plywood. The tent frame came down, last aluminum poles clattering as they hit the ground. Within 2 hours, the backyard looked like a construction site, just a weathered dance floor, sitting in the middle of wet grass, floodlights casting harsh shadows. "That's everything," Tony said, walking over. "You want us to take the floor too?" "No, leave it. I want them to see what they almost had." Tony wiped rain off his face. "I don't know what happened here, Mr. Patterson, but whoever this was for, they're gonna have one hell of a wake-up call tomorrow. That's the plan." I paid Tony in cash. He and his crew loaded up and left the last truck disappearing down the street around 10:30. I stood alone in the empty yard. The dance floor sat there like a stage with no play, like a promise that would never be kept. Perfect. I went inside one last time. The house echoed. Every footstep, every breath. I'd built this place with my own hands 40 years ago. Now it was just an empty shell. I walked to the garage and grabbed something I'd left behind on purpose. A folding table. Cheap white plastic, the kind you get at hardware stores for $30. It was covered in paint splatters from job sites. Dented. Used. I carried it into the kitchen and set it up right where the marble island used to be. The table looked ridiculous in the huge empty space. A piece of trash in $1 million house. But that was the point. This cheap plastic table was who I really was. A working man. Practical. Honest. Not the luxury they'd demanded and taken for granted. From my truck, I grabbed a large manila envelope. I'd prepared it this afternoon while the movers worked. On the front, in thick black marker, I'd written "Final Invoice." Inside was everything they needed to understand what they'd lost. The divorce petition. A detailed spreadsheet showing $615,000 spent over 16 years. Screenshots of the Phase 2 group chat. Eleanor Harris's signed statement about the drugging. And Richard Stone's business card with a handwritten note. "Call me when you're ready to negotiate. Or don't. Your choice." I set the envelope in the exact center of the plastic table. Then I walked through the house one more time. Living room empty. Dining room empty. Master bedroom empty. Evelyn's room empty except for the Father's Day card still in her drawer. I didn't look at it again. At the front door, I pulled out the master key and locked it. Then I slipped the key under the doormat and sent Vincent Grant a text. "Key is under the mat. Property is yours at noon tomorrow. Recommend bringing security." He replied immediately, "Understood. Good luck." I stood on the front porch and looked back at the house one last time. 16 years. Gone in one day. But I wasn't the one who'd destroyed this family. They had. I just stopped pretending we were one. I got in my truck and drove back to Harbor Hotel. Checked in for another night. $625. Cheap compared to what I'd just walked away from. The room was warm, quiet, safe. I set my alarm for 8 a.m. Tomorrow morning I'd drive to the marina and wait. I wanted to see their faces when they arrived, expecting hair and makeup and mimosas. I wanted to witness the moment they realized that the man they'd called just Eugene had become the architect of their collapse. Tomorrow was supposed to be Evelyn's perfect day. Her fairy tale. The moment she married into the Kingsley family with Travis walking her down the aisle while I sat at table 18 like a stranger. Instead, it would be her reckoning, and I'd earned the right to watch. I lay down on the hotel bed fully clothed and stared at the ceiling. Outside, rain drummed against the window. The same rain that was soaking the 53 boxes on the curb. The same rain that was turning the plywood dance floor into a slick, muddy disaster. By morning, there wouldn't be a wedding left, just consequences. And I was going to make sure they understood every single one. Before I reveal what happened when they arrived at that empty house, drop the number 70 in the comments if you're still with me. I want to see who's made it this far. And just a reminder, the story ahead contains some fictionalized elements and may not reflect real events. If you'd prefer not to continue, feel free to pause here. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather. Blue sky, light breeze, the kind of day that makes people believe in fairy tales. I sat in my truck at the marina 2 blocks from my old house, waiting for that fairy tale to collapse. I had binoculars, coffee, and a front row seat to the end of a world. At 9:45, the white Mercedes stretch limousine pulled up to the gate. Flashy, expensive, exactly the kind of entrance Evelyn had dreamed about. The first thing they saw was the sign, sold, chained to the gate with a heavy padlock. Big red letters. Impossible to miss. I lifted the binoculars and watched. Evelyn stepped out first. White silk robe with bride embroidered in gold thread. She was holding a champagne bottle, probably expecting congratulations and mimosas and laughter. She saw the sign. The champagne bottle slipped from her hand. It hit the driveway but didn't break, just rolled into the gutter. Her face went white. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sharon stepped out next, tottering on high heels. She grabbed Evelyn's arm, steadied herself, and stared at the sign like it was written in a foreign language. Chad came around from the other side of the limo, tried the gate code. Nothing. The keypad was dead because I'd cut the power yesterday afternoon. He kicked the side gate. Once. Twice. On the third kick, the wood splintered and the gate swung open. They ran, not walked. Ran. Around the side of the house toward the backyard where the wedding was supposed to happen in 6 hours. I couldn't see the backyard from where I was parked, but I could imagine it. Instead of a $31,000 tent with crystal chandeliers, they were seeing mud. A bare plywood dance floor sitting in standing water. No chairs, no altar, no flowers, nothing. Through the binoculars, I saw Evelyn come back into view. She collapsed to her knees in the mud, not caring anymore about the white robe. She spun around, looking for the tent, looking for something, anything that made sense. Sharon stood frozen, one hand over her mouth. Chad ran to the back door, grabbed a landscaping rock from the garden, and smashed it through the French doors. The sound of breaking glass carried all the way to where I sat. They went inside. I couldn't see what was happening in there, but I knew. Empty rooms, echoing footsteps, no furniture, no curtains, no dishes, no towels, just walls and the cheap plastic table with an envelope sitting in the middle of the kitchen. They hadn't found that yet. At 10 o'clock, a van pulled up. Hair and makeup team. 2 women with rolling cases and bright smiles. They looked at the house, at the broken door, at Evelyn still kneeling in the mud, and got right back in their van. They were gone in 30 seconds. My phone buzzed, then again, and again. I glanced at the screen. 47 missed calls. Sharon, Evelyn, unknown numbers. Probably vendors realizing there was no wedding to service. I put the phone on silent and kept watching. That's when the screaming started. Even from 2 blocks away, I could hear Evelyn's voice. "Where is everything?" Then Sharon shrieking something I couldn't make out. Then Chad shouting. Evelyn came running back around the front of the house. She stopped dead when she saw the curb. 53 boxes, soaked through from last night's rain. Cardboard sagging, contents spilling out. She ran to them. Dropped to her knees, started tearing through the boxes like a woman possessed. She pulled out the wedding dress, $7,400, custom fit, hand beaded. It was covered in mud and mildew. The hem was black with water damage. The silk was ruined. Evelyn held it up, looked at it, and screamed. Not words, just a raw animal sound of rage and disbelief. Sharon came running out, saw the boxes, fell to her knees beside Evelyn and started digging through them. hurling things onto the lawn, a Hermes bag, a pair of Louboutin heels, the sapphire necklace I'd bought for our 10th anniversary. All ruined, all worthless. Chad stood in the broken doorway, phone pressed to his ear. Probably calling vendors, or his parents, or a lawyer. None of them noticed my truck parked across the street, but they would, because I was done watching from a distance. I started the engine, put the truck in gear, drove slowly down the street and pulled into the driveway behind the limousine. Chad looked up, saw me. His face went from red to white in about 2 seconds. Evelyn was still on her knees in the mud, clutching the ruined wedding dress. Sharon was standing now, staring at the box's mascara running down her face. I got out of the truck. The morning was quiet except for the sound of my boots on the wet pavement. Blue sky overhead. Birds singing. Perfect weather for a wedding. Perfect weather for a reckoning, too. I walked past Chad without looking at him. Past Sharon, who opened her mouth, but didn't say anything. Past the limousine driver who was smoking a cigarette and pretending not to watch. I stopped in front of Evelyn. She looked up at me, mud on her white robe, mascara streaking her face. The dress crumpled in her arms like a dead thing. "Hi, Evelyn," I said quietly. "Happy wedding day." Her face twisted. "What did you do?" I didn't answer. Just looked at her. At Sharon. At Chad standing in the doorway of a house that wasn't mine anymore. At the family that had planned to erase me. I said, "It's time we had a conversation." I walked through the broken door at exactly 10:45, carrying nothing but my phone and the evidence of 16 years of being a fool. The house echoed. Empty rooms. Bare floors. My boots crunched on broken glass as I stepped through what used to be French doors. They were in the kitchen. Sharon in a bathrobe. Evelyn still in that white silk thing with bride embroidered on it, now streaked with mud. Chad in dress pants and an undershirt, phone in his hand. They all turned when they heard me. Sharon spoke first. "Eugene! What the hell did you do?" I didn't answer right away. Just walked slowly to the cheap plastic table sitting in the middle of where the marble island used to be. Stood behind it like it was a podium. Calm. In control. I was wearing my work clothes. Cargo pants, company shirt, steel-toed boots, not wedding attire. The opposite of their panic and silk robes. "I gave you exactly what you asked for," I said quietly. My absence. Sharon's face went red. "Where is everything? The furniture, my clothes. What did you do?" I picked up the manila envelope from the table, pulled out the first document and slid it across the plastic surface toward them. "This is an itemized invoice," I said. $615,000. That's the price of being just Eugene for 16 years. College tuition, cars, credit cards, parties. Every single dollar is documented. Evelyn snatched the paper. Her hands were shaking. "You can't bill your own family like this. I'm not billing you. I'm showing you." I kept my voice level, flat. "You called me an ATM, so here's the final balance, 0. You've been paid in full. Services rendered. Contract terminated." Sharon lunged forward like she was going to grab the paper. I pulled it back. "That's a copy. I have 17 more." I pulled out the second document, slid it across the table. "This is my resignation letter from this arrangement." Sharon looked down, saw the words, "Petition for dissolution of marriage" at the top. Her face went white. "Eugene, please, we can talk about this. We can go to counseling." "I'm 70 years old," I said. "I don't have time for more lies." Evelyn was breathing fast, now that panicked sound people make when they're about to hyperventilate. "Where's the tent? Where are the vendors? The guests are coming in 6 hours." "No," I said simply. "They're not." Sharon's eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" "I canceled everything. Caterer, florist, band, photographer, All 17 vendors, yesterday afternoon? I paused. $52,000 in forfeited deposits. But I saved $55,000 in final payments. So technically, I came out ahead. The kitchen was silent, except for Evelyn's ragged breathing. No, you can't do that, Sharon whispered. You can't just cancel a wedding. I can when I'm the one paying for it. Chad finally spoke up, his voice tight. This is insane. We can fix this. We'll call everyone back, You can try, I said. But before you do, there's something you should know. I pulled out my phone, turned it toward them so they could see the screen. I found something interesting Thursday night, a group chat. Called it Phase 2. Sharon's face went from white to gray. You have no right to read my messages. They were on the family tablet, in my office, in my house. I paused for effect. Except, it's not my house anymore. The silence was so heavy I could hear the wind outside. Chad spoke first. What do you mean, not your house? I sold it yesterday, to a cash investor named Vincent Grant. He takes possession today at noon, which is, I checked my watch, 72 minutes from now. Sharon made a sound like she'd been punched. You sold the house. Yes. You can't sell the house. We live here. I looked at each of them. My wife, my stepdaughter. The son-in-law who'd called me just Eugene. You lived here. Past tense. Vincent's crew will be here at noon with security and a locksmith. I suggest you start gathering whatever you can carry. Evelyn was shaking now, full-body tremors. The wedding, the guests. The governor is coming. Not anymore. But where will we? Sharon's voice broke. Where are we supposed to go? I didn't answer, just looked at her. She tried again, her voice dropping into that manipulative tone I'd heard 1,000 times. Eugene, sweetheart, I know you're upset, but we can fix this. We can postpone. We can fix it. I pulled out my phone again, opened the screenshots. You want to fix drugging me. You want to fix planning to declare me incompetent. You want to fix shady acres and splitting 3.2 million 3 ways. Sharon's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I found it all, Sharon. Every message, every plan, every detail. I looked at Evelyn. Every participant. Evelyn's face crumpled. I didn't. Mom said you'd be happier in a place where people could take care of. Don't. My voice came out harder than I'd intended. Don't you dare try to make this sound like it was for my benefit. Chad's phone rang. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. It's my dad. Hot, then you should probably answer it, I said. I imagine he's wondering why his $5,000 tuxedo rental is showing up for a wedding that doesn't exist. Sharon was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Eugene, you're not this person. You're kind. You're, when I said quietly. And you mistook kindness for weakness. You mistook generosity for stupidity. And you planned to lock me in a nursing home and steal everything I'd built. It wasn't stealing, Sharon whispered. It was just efficient asset management. I actually laughed. It was a cold sound. Is that what you call elder abuse now? Chad answered his phone, turned away. Dad, I can explain. I looked at Sharon and Evelyn. You have 70 minutes before Vincent arrives. I suggest you use them wisely. Chad stepped into the hallway to take his father's call. I could hear his voice through the empty rooms, low and urgent. Dad, we're in trouble. That's when I placed my phone on the plastic table and pressed play. The speaker filled the empty kitchen. Sharon's voice, recorded 3 months ago, echoed off the bare walls. Phase 1 complete. Wedding secured, vendors paid, Kingsley family committed. Now we begin Phase 2. Sharon lunged forward. Turn that off! I held the phone away from her. I've backed it up in 17 different locations. Cloud storage, Richard's office, 3 email accounts. You can't make this disappear. The recording continued. Chad's voice came through the speaker. Remind me what phase 2 is again. Sharon on the recording, casual and cold. Within 60 days after the wedding, we get Dr. Raymond to sign incompetency papers. I've been documenting Eugene's confusion and mood changes. The drugged tea sessions will provide medical evidence of cognitive decline. Evelyn's voice hesitant but complicit. And once he's declared incompetent, I take legal control. We liquidate the marina and the property. Total value $3.2 million. Split 3 ways. That's over $1 million each. Eugene goes to Shady Acres. $2,800 a month paid from his pension. He'll never understand what happened. Chad appeared in the doorway. His face had gone from pale to gray. He'd heard the last part. Wait. His voice was barely audible. What the hell is this? I stopped the recording. The silence that followed was deafening. That, I said quietly, is what your fiancée and her mother were planning to do to me. Elder abuse, medical fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, all documented, all admissible in court. Chad stared at Sharon. You were going to drug him, declare him incompetent, put him in a nursing home and steal everything. Sharon's face crumpled. It wasn't stealing. It was practical. He's 70 years old. He doesn't need to stop. Chad's voice cut through like a blade. Just stop talking. There was a knock at the broken door. Eleanor Harris stepped through, carefully avoiding the glass. Mr. Patterson, you asked me to come at 11:30. Eleanor. I gestured her forward. Thank you for coming. Can you tell them what you witnessed? Eleanor looked uncomfortable, but she walked to the center of the kitchen and faced Sharon directly. Ma'am, I saw you put something in Mr. Patterson's evening tea, multiple times over the past month. At least 4 occasions that I personally witnessed. You told me it was vitamins he forgot to take. She paused. But it wasn't vitamins, was it? Sharon's voice came out strangled. Eleanor, you're fired. She doesn't work for you, I said. She works for me, and she's willing to testify under oath if this goes to court. Chad took 2 steps backward away from Sharon and Evelyn. This is conspiracy, elder abuse, attempted fraud. He looked at Evelyn like he'd never seen her before. My family can't be associated with this. The Kingsley name, the governor's connections, everything my father built. Chad, please. Evelyn's voice broke. We can explain. We can fix this. Fix it. Chad's laugh was bitter. You plan to drug a 70-year-old man, declare him incompetent, lock him in a nursing home, and steal $3 million. What part of that do you think can be fixed? Evelyn reached for his arm. Please don't leave. What about the wedding? What about us? Chad pulled his arm away like she'd burned him. There is no wedding. There is no us. Give me back the ring. No. Evelyn clutched her left hand to her chest. No, you can't. The ring, now. Chad's voice was ice. Or I'll have my lawyer sue you for it. Evelyn's hand shook as she twisted the ring off. It was a large diamond, probably cost as much as a car. She held it out. Chad took it without touching her fingers. My lawyer will contact you regarding any shared expenses. He looked at Sharon. And if you try to implicate my family in any of this, we have lawyers who will bury you. Understand? Sharon said nothing, just stared at the floor. Chad walked to the door, then paused. Looked back at me. Mr. Patterson, I apologize. I didn't know. If I had known, you would have married her anyway, I said, because the money was real and the connections were useful. But now the money's gone and the scandal would destroy you. So you're leaving. That's fine. That's what people like you do. Chad's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue, just turned and walked out. The sound of his footsteps crunching over broken glass faded into silence. Evelyn collapsed. Not dramatically, just folded. Knees hit the floor, hands pressed to her face, and she sobbed. Huge, gasping sobs that echoed through the empty house. Sharon knelt beside her daughter, put a hand on her back, said nothing. What was there to say? I looked at them. The wife of 16 years. The stepdaughter I'd raised from age 10. For a moment, I saw Evie again. 10 years old, holding up that construction paper card. Beaming. You're my real dad. That girl was gone. Had been gone for a long time, maybe. Or maybe she'd never existed at all. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger. Just the same emptiness they'd given me when they pushed me to table 18 and told me the greatest gift I could give was my absence. Vincent Grant's crew arrives at noon, I said quietly. Whatever you leave behind becomes his property. I suggest you gather what you can carry. I walked toward the broken door. Behind me, Sharon's voice came out hoarse from crying. Eugene, where are we supposed to go? I stopped. Didn't turn around. That's no longer my concern. You wanted me gone. You got your wish. And I walked out into the bright Saturday morning, leaving them in the ruins of everything they'd tried to build on my back. I walked to my truck, started the engine, and drove south. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. Not even once. Looking back was what had kept me trapped for 16 years. Looking forward was how I'd find freedom. I turned off the radio. Just the sound of the highway and the hum of the engine and my own thoughts louder than they'd been in years. Phase 1 was theirs. Using me. Phase 2 was theirs. Erasing me. Phase 3 was mine. Freedom. But freedom felt heavier than I'd expected. After 30 minutes, my hands started shaking on the wheel. Adrenaline crash. I pulled into a rest stop, parked, and sat on a concrete bench staring at my truck. My phone rang. Henry Walker, old friend from the marina community. Eugene? I heard something happened. You all right? I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I think so. I don't know yet. Where you headed? Somewhere I can fish in peace. Henry chuckled low and knowing. Smart man. Sometimes the best thing you can do is drop a line and let the world spin without you. That's the plan. You need anything, you call me, understand? I will, thanks, Henry. I hung up and sat there for another 10 minutes, watching families walk in and out of the rest stop. Kids running, parents chasing, normal lives continuing like the world hadn't just imploded. I got back in the truck and kept driving. By sunset, I was 200 miles south. I pulled into a roadside motel, the kind with cracked pavement and a flickering neon sign. $85 a night. A far cry from Harbor Hotel. The room was basic, clean, quiet. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. That's when the memories came. The Father's Day card. Evelyn at 10, shrieking with joy when she caught her first base. Sharon surprising me with birthday lasagna at the marina office, year 3 of our marriage. You work so hard. You deserve to be appreciated. They weren't always like that. Or maybe they were, and I chose not to see it. I thought about the moment Sharon kicked me under the table. That wasn't sudden. That was the culmination of 16 years of learning she could. I thought about Evelyn hiding the Father's Day card under expensive shoes. When did she stop meaning those words? Or had she ever meant them at all? I thought about every time I said yes when I should have said no. Every boundary I failed to set. Every demand I met without question. I didn't just lose a family. I built a prison by saying yes to everything. Every time I gave without limits, I taught them I didn't require respect. That was my mistake. Not all of it, but part of it. My phone buzzed. I picked it up. 49 missed calls now. Sharon, 12 times. Evelyn 23 times. Unknown numbers 14 times. Probably vendors, probably lawyers, probably people who wanted answers I didn't owe them. I opened Sharon's contact, hovered over the block button. For 16 years, she'd been the first name in my phone. The person I called when something went wrong. The person who was supposed to be my partner. I pressed block, then I opened Evelyn's contact. Saw her name. Saw the photo taken 5 years ago at her college graduation. She was smiling. I was smiling. We looked like a family. We weren't. Maybe we never had been. I pressed block. Then I turned the phone off completely. The silence in that motel room was so complete, I could hear my own breathing. For 16 years I'd held my breath waiting for them to appreciate me. Now alone I could finally breathe. I lay back on the thin motel comforter. Outside, trucks rumbled past on the highway, each one heading somewhere. That's all I was now. A man heading somewhere. Anywhere but back. I thought about tomorrow. I'd drive farther south. Maybe to the Gulf Coast. Somewhere warm. Somewhere I could buy a cheap boat and spend my days on the water. Somewhere nobody knew me as Eugene the ATM or Eugene the stepfather or just Eugene. Just Eugene. For the first time in 16 years, that felt like enough. But tonight I needed to grieve. I needed to mourn the family I thought I had. The daughter who'd made me Father's Day cards. The wife who'd surprised me with birthday dinners. The life I'd built that turned out to be built on sand. You can't heal what you don't mourn, so I let myself feel it. The loss, the betrayal, the stupidity of believing that love meant always saying yes. The weight of 40 years of work, sold for $900,000 less than it was worth, because speed mattered more than value. I thought about the wedding that would never happen, the guests who'd shown up to an empty yard, the governor who'd arrived to find mud and plywood instead of crystal chandeliers. I thought about Sharon and Evelyn standing in that empty house, realizing everything was gone, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no revenge. Just a deep, aching emptiness where a family used to be. That's what they'd taken from me. Not the money, not the house, not even my dignity. They'd taken 16 years of belief. Belief that I was building something real. Belief that I mattered beyond my wallet. Belief that family meant something more than transactions. And now I had to build something new. Something that didn't require their validation. Something that was just mine. Tomorrow I'd start, but tonight I pulled the thin motel blanket over me and closed my eyes. Outside, the trucks kept rumbling past, each one heading somewhere. That was all I was now, a man heading somewhere, anywhere but back. 2 weeks after I walked out, I still woke up at 6 in the morning and reached for my phone to call Sharon. 16 years of habit doesn't disappear overnight. Neither does the pain. I was in another cheap motel, this one just outside Charleston. $72 a night, thin walls, and a bed that sagged in the middle like it had given up years ago. I'd been moving every 3 days, never staying long enough to feel settled. Just existing in the spaces between leaving and arriving. The nightmare had woken me at 3. Same one I'd been having for 2 weeks now. Evelyn at 10 years old, crying on the dock, her fishing rod forgotten beside her. Don't leave me like Travis did Daddy Eugene. Please don't leave me. I sat up in the dark sheets, damp with sweat heart pounding. I reminded myself that the little girl in that dream didn't exist anymore. The woman who'd stood in that kitchen 2 weeks ago with her designer wedding dress soaked in mud and her face twisted with rage wasn't the child who'd asked me to teach her how to bait a hook. Time changes people. Sometimes it reveals who they always were underneath. By 4 in the morning, I gave up on sleep. I pulled on jeans and a flannel that smelled faintly of diesel, walked 2 blocks to a 24-hour diner. The waitress didn't ask questions when I ordered black coffee and sat at a booth by the window. I watched the streetlights flicker and wondered how long it takes to stop reaching for something that's no longer there. An older couple sat at the next table. Late 70s, maybe early 80s. They held hands across the vinyl like it was the easiest thing in the world, like their fingers had memorized each other decades ago. The woman glanced over and must have seen something in my face because she leaned toward me, her voice gentle. "You all right, sweetheart?" I nodded, didn't trust my voice yet. She studied me for a long moment, the kind of look that sees through pretense. "Family trouble." I cleared my throat. "Left my wife and stepdaughter." The husband raised his eyebrows but didn't say anything. The wife just nodded like she'd heard this story before. Did they deserve it? I thought about the nursing home plan, about the cup of tea spiked night after night, about the group chat planning my erasure like I was already dead. "Yeah," I said finally. "They did." She reached across the aisle and patted my hand with fingers that were wrinkled but surprisingly warm. "Then you did the right thing. But that doesn't mean it won't hurt like hell for a while." Her husband paid for my coffee when they left. Didn't make a show of it, just nodded at the waitress and pointed at my cup. I sat there until the sun came up, wondering if kindness always catches you off guard when you're used to cruelty. Back in the motel room, I stared at my phone. 47 missed calls from the first few days. 12 from Sharon, 23 from Evelyn. I'd blocked them all by day 3. But this morning, sitting on the edge of that sagging mattress, I unblocked Evelyn's number for 30 seconds. My thumb hovered over the call button. I thought about all of it. The fishing lessons on early Saturday mornings, the graduation gown I paid $400 for, the first apartment I helped her furnish, the Father's Day card I'd kept in my wallet for 3 years. "You're the only real dad I've ever had." Then I thought about the other words, the ones that came later. "The greatest gift you could give me is your absence." Table 18. Shady Acres, $2,800 a month to rot in a place that smelled like defeat. I blocked her number again. You can't save someone who wants you erased. You can't love someone back to humanity when they've already decided you're disposable. At 10, my phone rang. Eleanor Harris. I almost didn't answer. "Mr. Patterson just wanted to check on you." "I'm fine, Eleanor. Sharon moved in with Evelyn. Chad's family won't have anything to do with them." She paused. "Thought you'd want to know." "I don't need updates, Eleanor. I need to move forward." "I know," she said softly. "But moving forward doesn't mean you stop caring. It just means you stop letting it destroy you." She was quiet for a beat. "I'm here if you ever need me to testify again." "You did the right thing." After she hung up, I stood in the shower and let the water run hot until the mirror fogged over completely, and I couldn't see my own face anymore. 16 years circling the drain. Everything I'd built washing away in $72 a night motel rooms. I needed water. I needed a boat. Not a yacht. Not some symbol of wealth. Just something that floated and didn't demand anything I couldn't give. I checked my account. $2,027,500. The house sale, the savings, the liquidation of 16 years. Enough to buy something decent. Enough to disappear for a while. Enough to become someone new. I packed up the truck at noon. 3 duffel bags, a toolbox, and a framed photo of my parents I couldn't bring myself to leave behind. I drove south and didn't stop except for gas. Every mile away from that city was a mile towards something I couldn't name yet. Not happiness, not peace, just possibility. Just the chance to breathe without wondering when the next betrayal was coming. A marina owner knows when a boat can't float in poisoned water. You have to find a different harbor. You have to cut the lines and accept that some things can't be salvaged. I was done being anchored to people who wanted me to sink. Done drowning in someone else's cruelty and calling it love. The Gulf Coast was waiting. So was the rest of my life. 1 month after I walked out, I stood on a dock in a small fishing village on the Gulf Coast, looking at a 28-foot boat that had seen better days, but still had good bones. Kind of like me, I figured. The paint was faded, the cushions were cracked from years of sun, and there was a patched spot on the hull where someone had scraped against a piling. But the lines were clean, the engine compartment was organized, and when I stepped aboard, the deck felt solid under my boots. A working boat, not a showpiece, something built to be used, not admired. A man walked down the dock toward me. Late 50s, skin tanned to leather hands that told me he'd worked on boats his entire life. "You interested in her?" "Maybe," I said. "Mind if I look around?" "Be my guest. Name's Carlos." I walked the deck, checking for soft spots in the fiberglass, opening the engine compartment, testing the wheel. 40 years of running a marina meant I knew what to look for. The engine was a Yamaha 4-stroke, well-maintained, no excessive corrosion on the wiring. The bilge was dry. The fuel lines were recent. Somebody had taken care of this boat, even if they hadn't made her pretty. "Engine's solid," I said. "Hull's clean. What are you asking?" $45,000. Cash preferred. I thought about it. The boat was worth maybe 40, maybe 38 if you factored in cosmetics. But I didn't care about cosmetics anymore. I cared about whether it would float and whether it would take me somewhere other than where I'd been. $42,000, I said. Cash today. No paperwork headaches. Carlos studied me for a long moment. "You running from something?" I met his eyes. "Running toward something." He nodded slowly. "Best reason to buy a boat there is." "Deal." We shook hands. I drove to the bank, withdrew $42,000 in cash, came back and counted it out on the dock, while seagulls screamed overhead and the smell of salt and diesel hung in the air. Carlos didn't ask questions, just signed over the title, handed me the keys, and said, "She'll treat you right if you treat her right." "Got a name?" I asked. "Marta, my ex-wife's name." He grinned. "Feel free to change it." I thought about it while Carlos walked away. Not second chance, because that was too obvious. Not freedom, because that felt desperate. I settled on New Horizon, simple, forward-looking, a line between the water and the sky that keeps moving no matter how fast you chase it. I spent the afternoon at a marine supply store. Fishing rods, tackle box, cooler, safety equipment, handheld radio. The kind of gear I used to recommend to customers but never bought for myself because there was always something else. Sharon needed some expense Evelyn had. I picked up cheap fishing rods first, $28 each. Put them down. Picked up quality ones, $400 each. Heard Sharon's voice in my head, clear as day. That's wasteful. And then I realized something. Sharon doesn't get a vote anymore. I bought the good rods. Bought 2 of them. Didn't flinch when the register showed 800 and change. That night I slept on the New Horizon docked at the marina. The gentle rocking of the water, the creak of the lines, the distant sound of other boats settling in for the night. I slept better than I had in a month. No nightmares. No reaching for a phone that shouldn't ring. Just the sound of water and the knowledge that this space was mine and mine alone. At dawn, I cast off. Followed the channel markers out past the breakwater, headed toward a fishing spot Carlos had marked on a chart. The engine hummed steady beneath me, and for the first time in 16 years, I wasn't checking my phone every 5 minutes. Wasn't wondering if someone needed something. Wasn't calculating the cost of someone else's dreams. I anchored in calm water about 3 miles out. Set up the rods, baited the hooks, opened the cooler I'd packed that morning with sandwiches and beer. The sun was warm, but not punishing. The water was flat. Nobody around for miles except me and the pelicans diving for baitfish. I was setting up the second rod when a big brown pelican landed on the gunnel maybe 5 feet from where I stood. I turned my back for maybe 10 seconds to adjust the drag on the reel. When I looked up, the pelican had a sandwich in its beak. The entire sandwich. Plastic bag and all somehow peeled open and extracted. It took off before I could even yell. "Hey!" I shouted, standing up fast enough to rock the boat. The pelican circled overhead with my lunch dangling from its mouth like some kind of prize. I stood there, hand on my hip, watching it. And then something happened that I didn't expect. I started laughing. Real laughter, the kind that comes from your belly and won't stop even when you try. I laughed until my sides hurt, until tears ran down my face, until I had to sit down on the cooler and catch my breath. I could still feel joy. They hadn't taken that. I thought they'd taken everything, but they couldn't take this. I caught 3 red snapper that afternoon. Cooked them on a portable camp stove right there on the deck. Ate with my hands, watched the sun paint the water gold, felt the breeze dry the salt on my skin. Nobody to criticize my clothes. Nobody to complain about the smell of fish. Nobody needing me to be anyone other than exactly who I was. The pelican came back around sunset. Maybe the same one, maybe not. I tossed it a piece of fish. It caught the thing mid-air, swallowed it whole, and landed on the bow like we were old friends. "We're even," I said out loud. The pelican didn't argue. Best dinner companion I'd had in 16 years. 3 months into my new life, I stopped counting the days and started counting the fish. That's how I knew I was healing. When the calendar mattered less than the tide chart. I'd settled into a rhythm that felt less like survival and more like actually living. A small efficiency apartment 2 blocks from the marina, month-to-month lease furniture that came with the place and didn't carry any memories. The New Horizon stayed docked at slip C-17. I could see her from my kitchen window if I leaned out far enough. My days had a pattern now. Up at dawn. Coffee on the boat while the sky turned from black to purple to gold. Fishing until noon or until I caught enough for dinner, whichever came first. Afternoons I spent reading books borrowed from the public library. I'd forgotten I used to love reading before Sharon decided every free moment needed to be productive in some way that benefited her or Evelyn. Now I read whatever I wanted. Westerns, thrillers, maritime history. Nobody to tell me it was a waste of time. Simple dinners, early to bed, no more nightmares. I'd changed in ways I could see and ways I couldn't. My skin had tanned deep brown from hours on the water. I'd lost the stress weight, the kind that settles around your middle when you spend 16 years waiting for the next crisis. My hands were still calloused, but my shoulders had loosened. I looked younger somehow, like shedding that life had taken years off my face. The marina community had absorbed me without asking questions. I nodded to the other fishermen in the morning, bought bait at the same shop, became a regular at the dockside coffee stand. Not friends exactly, but friendly. They didn't ask about my past. I didn't offer. I was at the fuel dock topping off the New Horizons tank when I heard someone call my name. "Eugene Patterson, that you..." I turned. Took me a second to place him. Jack Mercer. He'd bought a sailboat from me 8, maybe 9 years ago, standing there in deck shoes and a faded polo, looking exactly like the kind of retirement I used to think I wanted. Jack, small world. Isn't it, though? He walked over, hand extended. We shook. "I heard you sold everything, moved away. You doing okay?" "Better than okay," I said, and meant it. He looked at me closely. "You look good. Healthy." I actually ran into Sharon last month, back in the old town, at the grocery store. She was working the register. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no curiosity. Just a flat acknowledgement that she existed somewhere, and it had nothing to do with me. "I hope she finds her way. She didn't want to talk," Jack continued. "And your stepdaughter, I saw her waiting tables at a family restaurant. She tried to avoid me." He hesitated. "She's been telling people you had some kind of breakdown, that you abandoned them." I thought about getting defensive, thought about explaining. Then I realized I didn't need to. She can tell whatever story helps her sleep at night. I know the truth. That's enough. Jack nodded slowly, something like respect crossing his face. "That's real maturity, Eugene. Good for you." "You in town long?" I asked, changing the subject. "A few more days. Wife and I are taking the boat down to the Keys." He paused. "Hey, you free for dinner tonight? Carol's making garlic shrimp. Love to catch up properly." I almost said no out of habit. Then remembered I didn't have to protect anyone's feelings anymore. Yeah, I'd like that. We ate on his boat that evening, the three of us around his salon table while the sun set and turned the water to copper. We talked about boats and weather and fishing spots. Jack told sailing stories. Carol asked if I'd tried the grouper sandwiches at the place by the harbor. Not once did either of them circle back to Sharon or Evelyn or anything that had happened. They respected the boundary without me having to draw it. Walking back to the new horizon under a sky full of stars, I felt something I hadn't expected. Contentment. Not happiness exactly, not yet, but a deep, settled feeling of being exactly where I was supposed to be. I didn't want revenge anymore. Didn't want apologies. I just wanted them to leave me alone. And they were. That was enough. My phone buzzed. Text from Richard Stone. Official notice, divorce finalized today. Judge signed final decree. You are legally free. Other party did not contest. Clean ending. Congratulations, Eugene. I read it twice. Stood on the dock in the darkness, looking at those words on the screen. Whispered it out loud to the empty night. Free. For the first time it felt true. Not just a word. A real thing. A weight lifting. I stood there on that dock for a long time, watching the lights from other boats bob on the water. Free. Not free from consequences. I'd paid $900,000 below market value to get out of that trap. Not free from memories, those would always be there. But free from obligation. Free from being used. Free from having to be just Eugene to people who should have cherished me. The water was calm. The night was quiet, and for the first time in 16 years, I wasn't waiting for someone to demand something from me. I could just be. I slept well that night. The Pelican woke me at dawn, tapping on the hull like he always did, waiting for his share of whatever I caught that day. Same as always. Exactly the way I wanted it. 8 months after I walked away, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. I'd gotten very good at ignoring things that didn't matter. But something made me answer. Glad I did. Hello, Eugene. This is Travis. I sat there on the deck of the New Horizon fishing line, hanging slack in the water, trying to process what I'd just heard. Travis, Evelyn's biological father, the man who'd walked out when she was 3 and never looked back. The ghost she'd spent her entire life trying to summon back into existence. Why are you calling me Travis? I need to tell you something. About Evelyn. My chest tightened instinctively. 16 years of being responsible for her doesn't just vanish because you finally set boundaries. Is she hurt? She's alive, physically fine. He paused. But she called me 2 days ago. I waited. Didn't say anything. Let him work up to whatever this was. I don't know how she got my number. Called me crying. Said she's getting evicted Friday. Needs $1,800 for rent. Begged me. Called me Dad. His voice cracked slightly. Yeah, she hasn't called me that since she was 6 years old and still thought I was coming back. What did you tell her? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. I told her that I already gave her a real father. You. A man who showed up. Who paid for her life. Who loved her when I couldn't be bothered to send a birthday card. And she threw you away like garbage. Same way I threw her away when she was little. He took a breath. I told her now she knows what it feels like. To be abandoned by the parent she thought would save her. I sat with that. The water lapped against the hull. A pelican landed on the bow and watched me with one dark eye. Travis continued. Then I hung up. I'm not calling to apologize, Eugene. I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm calling because you deserved better. I was a shit father. You carried my weight. She treated you like an ATM. I just wanted you to know she got the same rejection from me that she gave you. Karma, I guess. You didn't have to call Travis. Yeah, I did. It's the only decent thing I've done in 25 years. He was quiet for a moment. Take care of yourself, Eugene. The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, staring at the water, watching the sunlight dance across the surface in patterns that shifted and changed and never stayed the same. The parallel structure was complete now, wasn't it? Evelyn had worshipped. Travis rejected Eugene. Travis rejected Evelyn. The circle closed. The lesson delivered. Part of me wanted to call her, to send the $1,800, to save her one more time. The old instinct, the one that had kept me trapped for 16 years, still had some pull. I could picture her in some rundown apartment, scared, desperate, realizing too late what she'd lost. My stepdaughter, the little girl who used to hold my hand on the dock and ask if the fish were sleeping under the water at night. But then I remembered other things. Phase 2. Shady Acres. The nursing home at $2,800 a month, where they would have warehoused me while they liquidated 40 years of my work. The group chat planning my erasure. Just Eugene. Table 18. The greatest gift I could give her was my absence. I thought about the Father's Day card. You're the only real dad I've ever had. And then the other words, the ones that came later. The ones that revealed what I'd always been to them. A checkbook with a pulse. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. Evelyn was learning hers. I'd already learned mine. We both had to live with our choices now. That was fair. That was right. That was the only way forward. I set the phone down and picked up the fishing rod. The line was tight. Something had taken the bait while I'd been distracted. I reeled in slowly, feeling the weight of it. A small grouper, maybe 12 inches, not big enough to keep. I worked the hook free, carefully held the fish in the water for a moment, watched its gills work, then opened my hands and let it go. It hung there for a second, like it wasn't sure what to do with freedom, then shot away into the deeper blue. Sometimes what you catch isn't meant to be kept. Sometimes you have to release it and trust that whatever you let go will either learn to survive or it won't. Either way, it's not your responsibility anymore. That's not cruelty. That's just nature. That's just the way things work when you stop trying to save everything that crosses your path. The sun was warm on my shoulders. The water was calm. The pelican on the bow made a croaking sound that might have been commentary, or might have been just a pelican being a pelican. I baited the hook again, cast out, felt the line sing through the air, and hit the water 30 feet from the boat. My phone stayed silent. I didn't pick it up. Didn't check for messages. Didn't wonder if Evelyn had my number, if she'd call next, if I'd have to make the decision Travis had made. I already knew what I'd do. The answer was no. Not because I didn't care, but because caring doesn't mean sacrificing yourself on the altar of someone else's poor choices. I'd learned that lesson, paid for it in full. It was the most expensive education I'd ever received, and I wasn't about to waste it. The line tugged. I set the hook, reeled in something worth keeping this time. Same as always. Exactly the way I wanted it. 2 days after Travis called, my phone lit up with a message from a number I'd blocked months ago. She'd found a way. A burner phone, probably. The message was long. I read every word. Dad, it's Evie. I know you blocked me. Please don't delete this. I'm getting evicted Friday. I need $1,800 for rent. I'm scared. I don't have anywhere to go. I'm sorry about everything. I was wrong about the wedding. I was wrong about phase 2. Please, Dad. I'll pay you back. I promise. I love you. Please. I sat there on the deck of the New Horizon afternoon sun, warm on my face, fingers tight around the phone. Read it 3 times. Each time something different pulled at me. $1,800 was nothing. I had over $2 million in the bank. I could send it right now. Wouldn't even feel it. She called me Dad. First time in 16 years outside of moments when she needed money or wanted something. She was 26. She was scared. She had nowhere to go. I remembered teaching her to fish. Her gap-toothed laugh when she was 10 and caught her first red snapper. You're the only real dad I've ever had, Daddy Eugene. The way she used to fall asleep on the couch during movie nights, head on my shoulder, trust so complete it hurt to remember. My finger hovered over the reply button. I started typing. Sent 45 million Vietnamese dong. Be safe. Almost hit send. Almost. Then the other memories came. The ones I'd been trying not to think about. The ones that mattered just as much as the fishing lessons and the laughter. The greatest gift you could give me is your absence. Just Eugene. Table 18. The way she'd laughed with Chad while I sat there trying to figure out what I'd done wrong. Phase 2. The group chat I'd found on Sharon's tablet. He'll never know what hit him. Old man won't last 6 months in Shady Acres. We'll be sipping wine in the Bahamas while he's eating pureed chicken and forgetting his own name. Evelyn's response in that chat. I feel a little guilty, just a little. Not enough to stop. Not enough to reconsider. Just enough to acknowledge she knew exactly what they were planning and went along anyway. Sharon putting something in my tea. Evelyn watching. Knowing. Travis's voice echoed in my head. Now she knows what it feels like to be abandoned. I deleted the unsent message. Moved my finger to the block contact button. Stopped there for 5 full seconds. This was the hardest thing I'd done in 8 months. Harder than walking away from the wedding. Harder than selling the house. This was the final cut. The last thread. Was I becoming like Travis? Abandoning her the way he had. Then I realized something. No. She abandoned me first. I was just refusing to be used again. There's a difference between abandonment and self-preservation. I pressed block contact. A tear rolled down my face. Not from guilt, from relief. I was free. Finally, truly free. I caught a grouper that afternoon. A big one, maybe 5 pounds. Cooked it right there on the boat with lemon and garlic butter, ate it while the sun set and turned the water to molten copper. It was perfect. My phone rang around 7. Richard Stone. Counting? Eugene just checking in on the quarterly update. Richard, I don't need updates anymore. Silence. Then carefully, you sure? I'm sure. They're not my family. Haven't been for a long time. I appreciate everything you did, but I'm closing this chapter here. Another pause. If it means anything, you handled this with more grace than most men would have. Enjoy your freedom, Eugene. I am, I said, and hung up. An older couple walked past the dock an hour later. The man saw me sitting there, waved. Beautiful boat, does your family ever come visit you out here? I opened my mouth. The words, I don't have children, caught in my throat for just a second. My voice was a little rough when I answered. No, sir. He waited, sensing there was more. I steadied myself. But I have this. I gestured to the boat, the water, the sunset painting, everything gold. And it's more than enough. The old man nodded like he understood everything I hadn't said. You're a wise man. Then he walked on. I sat there as the stars came out. Thought about everything. I was 70 years old. I'd spent 16 years building a family that never wanted me. I probably had 10 good years left, maybe 15 if I was lucky. I wasn't going to waste one more day on people who saw me as just Eugene. Not one more hour trying to earn love from people who'd already decided I was worth exactly what I could provide, and nothing more. The pelican landed on the bow. I tossed him a piece of grouper. He caught it, swallowed it, made that croaking sound that might have been thank you or might have been give me more. I laughed. That's all you get, buddy. Rest is mine. He didn't argue, just settled in like he planned to stay a while. The water was calm. The night was clear. My phone stayed silent and I was glad. No more emergencies. No more demands. No more guilt about boundaries I should have set 16 years ago. Tomorrow I'd wake up at dawn, make coffee, go fishing, maybe catch something, maybe not. It didn't matter. I had time now. Time that was mine. Time that nobody could take from me or guilt me into giving away. The grouper was delicious. Looking back on my story, I see what I should have seen 16 years ago. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're 70 to realize that love without respect is just exploitation. This wasn't just husband revenge or family drama. This was a man learning that God gave us boundaries for a reason, and ignoring them cost me 16 years and nearly my dignity. Here's what I learned. First, God doesn't ask you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. When Scripture says honor your family, it doesn't mean become their ATM. Second, family drama often hides financial abuse. If you're the only one giving while everyone else is taking, that's not a family, that's a transaction. Third, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. My husband revenge wasn't about cruelty. It was about consequences. It was about saying no after 16 years of yes. God gives us free will, and I finally used mine. Some call what I did husband revenge, but I call it self-preservation. Don't wait as long as I did. Set boundaries early. Protect your dignity. Walking away from family drama isn't abandonment, it's survival. If this story moved you or taught you something, please leave a comment below. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss these real-life lessons. Your support means everything. Thank you for staying with me until the end. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. A gentle reminder, the stories ahead may contain fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, feel free to explore other videos that suit your preferences. Take care.